So why scientific publishing industry is so broken? Well, just to give you an idea, first of all, how bad it is, I'll start with my own personal experience. My salary as a PhD student at Stony Brook was around like $2,500 per month. That's how my usual research work day looks like. So I go on archive to read some article which I need um, because I'm interested in this result, say for example. And archive is free repository site, so you can access it easily. And then somewhere in text, the authors mentioned some result or some model which they introduced, which was actually discovered in like 1987 or 79 or something like that. And they give a link to the source, to some original article. And if I actually want to understand what this model was, how it worked, or how the proof goes, I need to go and find this old article, which is usually not on archive, but it's published by some, well, big publishing organization like Elsevier, right, or something like this. And the article there is not free. It costs like from $20 to $30, sometimes $40 even. So it's a big price, and obviously I can't afford it. So I have to use Sci-Hub. Um, but I basically steal this article, and then I find what I want, and it turns out this is a small article, and the authors just generalize the results of previous people a little bit, and they reference me back further, like another 5-10 years prior to that. And I look up this article again, and again on Elsevier it cost $20. I go to Sci-Hub, I found it, and then I open it and see what's inside, and the authors now give reference to a book. So they said this is how we prove our theorem, and the theorem essentially relies on well-known result, and the well-known result is already published in a book. So if you don't know this theorem, you have to consult a book, and then the book is also available, maybe on Amazon, maybe also in the same publishing site for like already $100 or $200. And then I have to go to LibGen and pirate the book, and then I open the book, and then I find the proof, and well, that's actually not what I thought it will be, and it's just totally useless. And I basically proceed with my day unsatisfied. But if I didn't use piracy to quickly look up all the things I need and realize that I don't actually even need those articles, I'd have to pay $20 at least twice and then $200 for a book. So, which is obviously impossible. So it's clearly the system clearly cannot function like this. And that's how can I pay so much money for the something I need every day? It's almost every day I have to do something like this. So um, I got curious why it happened, and um, what is the explanation for this kind of state of affairs. And I try to research this topic, and well, I will get to a little bit more details later, but now I realize that the correct way to start these discussions is on very high level um, general considerations, philosophical considerations. The true philosophical origin of this problem is a clash between competing ideologies. One is the ideology of altruism, which usually results in the political system of socialism. And one is the ideology of egoism, the view of morality, egoistic view of morality, which is usually associated with capitalism. And in our world, we have most of the ideologies competing with each other. So in practice, we have some sort of mixed system, right? Which has both elements of capitalism and elements of planned economy. And this creates some sort of, boundaries between them in the real market, where they have to interact. They have to connect somewhere. It's usually takes the form of governmental contractors, subsidies, or taxes, right? So and at this boundary, what happens is that the selfish individuals on the market side, effectively they abuse the governmental system built by altruists for the altruists. So for example, you could imagine some sort of semi-public healthcare system like in US, where the government dumps tons of money to private companies to service the clients which the government wants to provide healthcare for everybody. And then private companies just collect these paychecks. Well, they're getting huge sums, which were extorted from taxpayers at gunpoint. Or similarly, if the government want to have social security, or they want to have some sort of bureaucracy, and they have to pay pensions to the bureaucrats, they have to store this money somewhere. And this means some hedge fund is getting some sweet deal from the government to service this sum. Under certain restrictions, as usual, right? With a certain governmental ideology imposed on them. Or, well, you could imagine, I don't know, some governmental oil company, which altruists push through because, the resources belong to the people. And then it's totally ineffective, and it has this little, subcontractors, which are private firms, which basically game in the system as much as they can, um, trying to charge higher prices for it. And so this is a general situation where the governmental bureaucrats are the people who are in control of the wealth which they haven't naturally acquired um, through voluntary exchange, and the wealth which doesn't truly belong to them. So they always mismanage it. Yeah, so as soon as there is some boundary between capitalist and socialist system, at this boundary, there will be always flux, of resources. The capitalists will, abuse like the centrally planned system. The altruists are trying to sacrifice themselves and give everything away, because that's how they see the world should work. And some egoistic, ambitious, resourceful individuals, they form a line to grab the free stuff. And there will be a queue formed for the slice of the pie, collected from taxpayers at gunpoint. So yeah, and this is the general lens under which we're gonna look at this problem. And of course, again, it's fair to say that this boundary always moves depending on the dominant policy in Washington, right? Altruists want to push it further to go to complete socialist system, because they usually say, oh, you see, this company abuse our welfare, we need to prohibit that, we need to push the boundary further. And capitalists say, no, we have to abolish this subsidies, we have to abolish the socialist element, right? So yeah, that is the conflict, and that's how each side uses solution. And as you probably understand, academia is literally a birthplace for these altruistic ideas. It's basically this altruistic ideas could call academia its home. So you would expect this phenomenon to be the strongest here. And that's indeed overall what happened. Basically, researchers, they are usually altruist um, to the bones, and they say, well, our research should be available to everybody. Research belongs to humanity. It's it should be free. And so whenever a scientist writes his article, he doesn't think about it as he owns it. um, and he publishes it for free. So he gives it to the journal to publish it. And then the journal send it to peer review to another researcher who also does the peer review for free. I don't know, it's, well, you could say that technically researcher could get some reputational benefits from peer review and boost him inside this career ladder. But well, we have to talk about it separately. The academia itself is a centrally planned system, so the incentives inside it are completely broken. So they are already built the centrally planned system in agreement with the altruistic vision. So yeah, researchers sometimes uh, they engage this peer review because they want to uh, um, get some more recognition, well, and move forward and higher in the hierarchy, which is already not merit-based really. So yeah, there's an aspect like this, but it's also uh, relies on altruistic morality. So yeah, and what it essentially results in is that the publisher get the publication for free because researchers were funded by the government and they get a really small salary. They give the article to the publisher because they truly think it should be available to everybody. Peer reviewers review it for free because, well, it's just the good Samaritan thing to do, more or less. Of course, I mean, if somebody want me to look at his research and see whether it's correct, I need to do it. I need to make sure that things which are published um, are correct to maintain our reputation of academia. So yeah, anyway, so the publisher get the article and then it publishes it with uh, $20 price tag. In that sense, what happens is that kind of like researchers gives article to the publisher and then they have to purchase the article back for money. So the publisher represents the capitalist morality here. Uh, and in this case, yes, they openly abuse the pure altruists from academia. They just getting money out of nowhere, out of thin air. Now you could ask, well, hold on, who is paying for it, right? It's like if researchers can't pay $20, who a publisher charges money to? And what's happening, they're charging it to universities and libraries. So I supposedly have a subscriptions from my university to access those articles. And university pays like huge subscription, annual subscription fee, which again mostly funded by taxpayers through subsidies or grants. So you again you pay to purchase your own research. So taxpayers pay eventually. It's just a simple racket scheme, or the same racket we see in healthcare, where health insurances kind of crowded out single payer schemes, and the healthcare became unaffordable for single buyers who don't have insurance. The same happened here. If you're a single researcher and you don't have subscriptions to university, you will not be able to get it. And again, technically, my university doesn't even have subscription for everything I need. Like I constantly come across situation where, oh, this article university didn't pay for somehow, or let's say I'm out of campus and I don't have access to university network, and then I have to prove that I'm part of this university, and usually it doesn't really work. So it's very inconvenient. Again, similar with health insurance situation, and it's very controlling and broken, just like the socialists always do it. So yeah, that's essence. And I think maybe I can kind of give you enough details. Now we could also talk a little bit about the solutions. Uh, it seems like the full capitalist solution would be, to have complete property rights on publications. That's one of the ways. I could say, as a researcher, I own my own article, and then the publisher have to purchase it from me first. And then when I purchase it from me, say for $200, it could try to sell it to everybody for say $20, right? Then it kind of makes sense. That of course requires leftist academia stop being leftist and altruist. But that's one possible solution, like a pure property rights view. However, there is an opposite solution where nobody has property rights on knowledge anymore. And you could say it's, well, it's some kind of purely leftist view, but apparently, surprisingly, here leftists have an unexpected ally, which is Austrian School of Economics. Yeah, I was initially surprised to learn that the Austrian School of Economics, which was the most pro-capitalist, pro-freedom school, actually rejects intellectual property rights. They think they're legitimate, and I could try to explain briefly the reasons for it. So the initial justification for property rights given by like John Locke relied on the labor theory of value to some degree at least. And when the labor theory of value was kind of abandoned, you could say was proven wrong, this justification also got weakened. So instead, the Austrian school had alternative view on rights as conflict avoidance tools. That's a key idea. Conflict avoidance tools for scarce resources. And in that sense, knowledge or ideas are not considered scarce resource, because whenever you share knowledge with other person, you're not left with less knowledge. So there's no actual competition here on a scarce resource, like water, oil, coal, right? House. So there's no conflict to avoid. And in that sense, Austrian school views intellectual property rights and a patent system as a pure government intervention. So yeah, you could say a little bit unexpected, and I don't know who is right and which system will be correct and more functional. But right now I'm trying to explain it. We have this dysfunctional standard for America in our current Western world, dysfunctional mixture of this capitalist system on one side and altruistic system on another side, and the abuse of one by another in the middle. So that's why it's so broken. Therefore, one one way or another we have to fix it, and because even capitalists have different views on this topic, it's seem almost like hopeless, right? If even capitalists within themselves could not agree on it, how could we ever get it right? So yeah, unfortunately, there are no good prospects here so far, but I hope you found this interesting. See you next time.